When I was a kid, my parents brought us to southern Indiana on vacation. Back then, I thought it was the coolest place on earth, and why wouldn't I? Caves that disappeared deep inside the hills. Historic old places. And the Ohio River winding through one of the most quiet and most mysterious landscapes I'd ever seen. But it wasn't until many years later, when I moved to southern Indiana for work, that I began exploring the back roads along the river. And that's when I discovered many places that most people never see. Forgotten monuments, abandoned structures, hidden overlooks, and strange landmarks that weren't marked on any tourist map. Today we're going exploring to find the secret places along the Ohio River that nobody talks about. Rockport, Indiana is a small town along the Ohio River. It has less than 2,000 residents. Along the waterfront is a large rock wall with a set of stairs. About 10 years ago, I found a single mention of it on the internet, nowhere else, but decided to check it out. The stairs look a little sketchy, but that's just part of the adventure. The fencing wasn't up there when I visited many years ago, but after all, this is the age of safety. I can imagine decades of kids climbing up there in the summer and dangling their legs, watching passing boats and sunsets. And if I lived in Rockport as a kid, I would have been one of them. But this place along the Ohio River has a secret. Despite having visited the waterfront many times, I didn't know about the hidden lower level until two of my viewers told me about it. This was absolutely an epiphany. There are several rock shelters down here, along with some other unusual things I wasn't expecting. Sometimes you get more than what you're looking for. So much like Hemlock Cliffs in Crawford County. In the distance, I saw a huge rock that looked like it fell from above, making a window. And on the side of it, this sculpture. In some ways it looks like a horse with a long tail and mane, but the horn makes me think it's a goat. Maybe it's a goat that wishes it was a horse. I don't think it's ancient, but it is very cool nonetheless. Back at road level is the James Langford Rock Shelter. In 1808, 24-year-old James Langford and his young family made their home beneath this overhanging rock while establishing a permanent homestead. There were no hotels, inns, and certainly no Airbnbs waiting for them. They were the area's first white settlers and had to make do with what they had. James Langford later became a minister at Tippecanoe Methodist Church, known today as Bloomfield Wesley Chapel. At the end of the park drive stands a monument that many Abraham Lincoln enthusiasts have never heard of. In 1828, 19-year-old Abraham Lincoln and his friend Allen Gentry loaded a flatboat with goods and set off down the Ohio River toward New Orleans. The plan was simple: sell the cargo, earn a profit, and return home. But along the way, Lincoln witnessed the reality of slavery firsthand. He was both repulsed and angry. He told Allen, "If I ever get a chance to hit that thing, I'll hit it hard." About 35 years later, as President of the United States, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, helping set the nation on the path toward ending slavery. And that journey began here in Rockport, Indiana. One of my biggest surprises was the Lincoln Pioneer Village that's just a few blocks from the waterfront. Many confuse it with the Pioneer Village at Lincoln City, but this is totally different. Back in the 1930s, a man named George Honig had a dream to build a roadside attraction dedicated to Abraham Lincoln's life. He made a plan, submitted it to the government, and because they were looking for any project to put people back to work, they funded it. This incredible tribute was made between 1934 and 1935 by the Works Progress Administration, log by log. It provided not only jobs, but a legacy that's still going, nearly a century later. And it all started with one man and a dream. Each building in the village tells a story from Abraham Lincoln's life. The house where he lived, where he went to church, where he went to school, where he worked, where he learned about law. The village was so well done that Hollywood made a movie here with Burt Lancaster called The Kentuckian. Also, there is a museum featuring Abraham Lincoln artifacts and local history. They even have a cabinet made by Abraham and his father Thomas. It's amazing what you'll find when you explore the towns along the Ohio River. Grandview, population 698. Grandview is a small town along the Ohio River with a park. Gracious old buildings. Ghost of the past. Slowly fading away. And one of my favorite ice cream places in southern Indiana. Not all great discoveries have to be ancient. Not only did Abraham Lincoln live in southern Indiana, he worked there too. One of those places was just west of Troy. And as the name suggests, he ran a ferry boat across the river for James Taylor. And no, not the guy that sang about seeing fire and rain. There's a kiosk that talks about Lincoln's time here and other local history. When I first came here, there was a majestic stone shelter on the hill. Today it looks like ancient ruins. Hopefully they'll restore the roof. The town of Troy has a population of 347, one of the smaller towns along the Ohio River. It's one of my favorite stops, as something is hidden on the hill above. At the summit is the Christ of the Ohio statue. The statue was carved by a German POW that was once imprisoned in Kentucky. He liked America so much that he came back and made not only this, but many other religious masterpieces that are still in Indiana today. You'll find an absolutely commanding view. Not to mention, it's nearly always deserted. Tell City, population 7,506. At Tell City, a few blocks from the river is City Hall, as well as an interesting piece of odd history. Tell City is named after William Tell. You might remember the story where he shot an apple off his son's head with a crossbow, not a recommended father-son activity. Despite this being a very popular story in Switzerland, historians cannot prove that William Tell ever existed. But that didn't stop early Swiss citizens in Perry County from calling their town Tell City, making a monument for the City Hall lawn. The local high school naming their students the Marksmen, or naming the grade school William Tell Elementary. Want to know why they called it Tell City? They didn't think English-speaking people could pronounce their earlier choice of Helvetia. Or was that Helvetia? Yeah, whatever. Considering people still mispronounce Vivi, Lagodi, Lacania, and Olytic, they probably weren't wrong. Cannelton, population 1,524. The Ohio River town of Cannelton has many notable things, starting with the old cotton mill. Completed in 1851, it looks like something out of a Harry Potter movie. At one time, it was the largest industrial building west of the Allegheny Mountains. It's been converted to apartments, still going strong after 175 years. And here's a fun fact. The Myers Grade School is the oldest public school still in use in Indiana. It was built in 1868. That's nearly 160 years. And here's yet another fun fact. It's widely considered the oldest public school in use in the entire United States. It was formerly Cannelton High School. One special place I'd wanted to visit for a long time was the Perry County Museum. It's an absolute treasure trove of local history, housed in the historic 1896 Perry County Courthouse. Over the last 9 years, I always managed to be in town when it wasn't open. Just so you know, it's open Sundays from 1 to 3 Eastern Time, June through October. You don't see this kind of woodwork anymore. And that's equally true for the rare artifacts in this collection. Prehistoric relics found in Indiana and Kentucky, with some very fine examples. This is a switchboard. Before we had phones that we put in our pockets, with connections controlled by computers, someone had to manually patch you through to whomever you wanted to talk to. If you needed clothes, someone had to weave fabric with something like this. Got a bad tooth? Sit in this plaid chair and let the dentist work on it. They even have a confiscated moonshine still. And a casket. Before the days of mass production, all of them were made to order from wood, like this one. There's a gallery for military history, from the Civil War to present. The admission is free, but donations are always appreciated. And who doesn't need a Perry County Museum t-shirt? At Cannelton, Indiana, you can cross the bridge to Hawesville, Kentucky for a remarkable side adventure. Trust me when I say that it's worth the trip over. With the old courthouse, you immediately think of a time a few hundred years ago, but what you're about to see was made eons before that. Jeffrey's Cliffs is a special place. It was created by the exact same processes that you see in Indiana, and it's only 8 minutes from the river. The trail going left used to require climbing a rope to get to the top, but now there are stairs. But going straight, you'll encounter one of the coolest places along the river. Gigantic rock formations lead to a very special place. This is Morgan's Cave, one of the largest known rock shelters in Kentucky. Believe me, the camera does not do it justice. This thing is huge. It's one of 2 Kentucky caves named Morgan's Cave, the other at Brandenburg. Both are associated with the 1863 Confederate raid of Indiana by General John Hunt Morgan. Allegedly, one of Morgan's detachments hid here before crossing the Ohio River to Indiana. You can reach the cave in under 15 minutes, and there's plenty more to explore if you have time. Crossing back to Cannelton, is one of the most dramatic overlooks along the Ohio River, Eagles Bluff Park. It is extremely easy to miss. I'd like to mention that they have great restrooms, but more importantly, an outstanding view of the lock and dam. In all the times I've dropped by, I've only seen a few people. If you have the time, bring a comfortable chair and take it all in for a bit. Also at Cannelton is Lafayette Spring. It's an interesting little stop. Abraham Lincoln's family stopped here to get a drink on their way to their homestead in Spencer County. But it's better known as where the Marquis de Lafayette's boat sank. He was a hero of the Revolutionary War and a big help to America's independence, not to mention a very close friend of George Washington. While he took refuge at the spring, people came by to shake his hand. He was a rock star. The spring water still flows, but I wouldn't drink it on a dare. Further east is Rocky Point, and the largest Celtic cross in the world ever cut from a single piece of rock. Extremely easy to miss, as it's a little road up the side of the hill just below Blue Heron Winery. I've never seen another soul here. The Electra Memorial that's just down the road is dedicated to one of the worst air disasters in southern Indiana history. On March 17th of 1960, the engine separated from a Lockheed Electra L-188. It sent the fuselage into the ground like a missile at 600 miles an hour. All 63 passengers were killed. When I first visited, 2 young boys told me it was haunted and people see weird things all the time. Tobinsport has no official population. At Tobinsport, the strangest thing you'll see is a sign near the Ohio River. It retells the story of how Abraham Lincoln's family crossed here from Kentucky. Local residents have embraced it and have installed Christmas lights so you can see it at night. As you head northeast, you'll pass a road to German Ridge. The trailhead starts at the lake and ascends to an impressive stony ridge. I couldn't help but think that ancient people would have loved it here. But if they left any petroglyphs, they have long since weathered away. If you hike in late fall through early spring, it's easier to see the detail of both Jeffries Cliffs and German Ridge. And the additional bonus, very few people, if any. In fact, you might be the only one on the trail. On one of my first extensive road trips along the river, I found the town of Rome. At present, the population is only 36. It doesn't get much more small town than that. The centerpiece is the old courthouse, built in 1818. It was built to resemble the one at Corydon. With a grant from the Indiana Historical Society, new windows are being built, and the hope is to return it to its former glory. Over its 200-year history, it's been a courthouse, school, Masonic lodge, and a community center. I always hoped I could tour the inside, and on one trip in July 2026, I got my wish. Solid wood floors and good bones for restoration. There are chalkboards from when it was a school, and pictures from the past on the walls, over 100 years old. The second floor landing had a ladder going up to the old bell, and rows of desks from when students had classes. Time has frozen still, a true time capsule. There's a relic from the local post office when mail would be sorted to boxes for people to pick up. And from the courthouse days, a seat where people would provide testimony during trials. I absolutely love these historic places. It's not often that you get to experience one with over 200 years of history. 2 centuries under its belt, and with the support of volunteers and patrons, will be here for centuries to come. Like Tobinsport, Derby has no official population. The highlight of Derby, Indiana is a small park with a path that leads down to the Ohio River. It's easy to imagine the steamboats that used to stop here, with people exiting and boarding in their 1800s clothes. Always a gracious, quiet place to stop and stretch your legs. But not all steamboat stories have a happy ending. Magnet has no official population. Here at Magnet, Indiana, a row of Civil War graves face the Ohio River, telling of a tragic past. In 1865, the USS Argosy steamboat, taking Union soldiers home from the war, violently exploded. 10 soldiers lost their lives, so close to home, but they never made it. The blast was so massive that they were put into a mass grave. One that overlooks the Ohio River and the journey they couldn't complete. Above the town of Magnet is a vision of heaven itself, where large birds can be seen stretching their wings to float above the air currents. At nearly any time of the day, you can see barges go up and down the river. Further east is the Buzzard Roost Overlook. Back in the 1800s, steamboats would stop below and people would buy food from vendors. Buzzards would hover above, waiting for an opportunity to swoop down for a free meal. Never mind the name, it's an outstanding view. Many locals remember a fire tower that once provided an even higher up view. Alton, Indiana, population 29, with most of the residents being campers. Most outsiders have never heard of Alton, Indiana, and its serene waterfront. There's a community school, charming old church, town hall, fire department, and most impressive, homes on stilts. It's not a question on if the Ohio River will flood, it's when. Many would argue that the single-lane bridge is pretty exciting too. This is me crossing it from the east. You want memories, you have to take a few chances. But perhaps one of my favorite stops is the overlook at Fredonia, also known as Schooner's Point. A simply outstanding view of the Ohio River and Kentucky. I've lost count of how many times I've dropped by, and I've never seen another tourist. Leavenworth, population 269. The overlook at Leavenworth is much better known, especially since it sits next to a restaurant called The Overlook. It's likely the most photographed vista in all of Indiana, You can park your car in front of it and take it all in. Simply a breath of fresh air. At one time, a series of lock and dam buildings were built along the Ohio River. Most were destroyed or made into homes, such as this one at Evansville. But at Leavenworth, you can tour an abandoned one at your own risk. Obviously, it's been a hangout for many years. To wrap up this tour, I chose O'Bannon State Park on the far western edge of Corydon. Most people don't think of Indiana being like this, towering ridges of rock and caves, but that's exactly what it is. In fact, Harrison County has over 600 known caves. And people still discover more as they explore places that no one ever goes. Even today, as I drive along the Ohio River, I find more places that I didn't know existed. It's easy to pass things when you're moving too fast. Maybe you should slow down. Maybe it's time for a road trip.